The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Be the criminal, right? And if an armed citizen is the motivation that compels a criminal not to, be a criminal, then why is it so regulated? And I've said this on other shows in the past that guns are more heavily regulated than medical practice. That's right. There are more laws for guns, ammunition, the purchase, the sell, and anything to do with firearms, than it is to basically prescribe medications that may or may not work, and very in many cases are fatal when it comes to malpractice. If you've ever seen a commercial on television, listen to the list of potential side effects. So I guess I would list a list of potential side effects for firearms use as maybe having a whole lot of fun. I go to the range and everybody talks about their zen, right? Their whatever it is that helps them decompress and relieve stress. And firearms for me is absolutely one of them. I mean, it is so satisfying to, take the time to, whether you build your own bullets or build your own guns, or you just buy everything off the shelf. You put all of the components together, you line up your sights, you apply, slow, steady squeeze of the trigger, maintaining proper sight alignment, sight picture, aiming, breathing, hold control, trigger control, and follow through. And the round breaks, and and if you're shooting steel, that's even, that's instant gratification. You pull the trigger, you hear the bang, and then ting. Whether it's 50 yards away or 500 yards away. So that's why I'm such a huge advocate for firearms. There's a long list of course, of reasons why guns are good. We only hear about the bad. So those are my 2 cents. My stepson. He's taken an interest in what I'm doing, and I call it the gun room, but I don't keep any guns in there. That's just where I do all my work on them, and it gives us an opportunity to gives me an opportunity, one, to teach, right? Not only am I teaching him how to be a responsible gun owner, in the future, obviously he doesn't own any now, but it gives us an opportunity to really bond and create a relationship. I'm teaching him things like, hey, yeah, this is, a screwdriver, this is a wrench, this is a hex. It creates that environment. And I think that's really the most responsible thing I can do for anybody is get them comfortable, at least being around them. Maybe someday he'll grow up and think that guns are unnecessary, and that's fine. At least he'll be educated on them, and he won't be afraid of them. And everybody's entitled to their opinion. But that's just that's my 2 cents. 1 second. All right. So, I've been kind of moving to the next topic. I've been skimming around looking for things to talk about on the show. And so I bought this. I think it's an NXY Energetics 22 or 5.7 suppressor, right? And I bought this probably a year ago or so, with the purpose of putting it on a couple of 22 rifle, 22 pistol, because it's a great training aid. You know, the suppressor really helps with somebody who is maybe developed some really bad habits with regards to shooting, especially pistol. So what I've noticed is that because the gun goes bang, a lot of people tense up and they heel or push into the gun. It's also called anticipating, and they'll consistently get shots for a right-handed shooter to the low left. So whenever I would put either snap caps or no ammunition in the gun at all, you know, they would stop the flinching. But then when I'd reintroduce the ammo, it would come right back. So I bought these suppressors, and yeah, and so I've been putting them on the pistol, and I've learned that when there's no loud bang, people tend to relax more, right? So it makes them more comfortable, and that way we can focus back on the fundamentals. Because if somebody, you know, if somebody's going to flinch every time they get ready to pull the trigger, you know, you can't teach the fundamentals because they're, yeah, you know, they're focusing on the wrong part of the story, right? So you get them focusing on the right part of the story, and anyway, so I've been using this suppressor and trying different ammos, because one thing I've noticed is that with especially the 5.7, using that 22 caliber or 5.7 suppressor, there's so much debris that blows back from the suppressor that it's yeah, it's really uncomfortable. I mean, even with eye protection, I mean, you're getting pelted in the face with you know, feels like little grains of sand. Um, so doing some research, and it's not a new topic. I'm just new to it. You know, all over the web, you know, gun forums, they're saying that, yeah, it'll work, but you're not going to like it for that very reason. And another problem, kind of a secondary issue with it, is that you know, all that blowback and debris is still inside your inside the chamber, you know, in the muzzle, all over the bolt and everything. And within a few rounds, at least in my experience, I'm getting a whole lot of malfunctions. You know, either failure to extract, failure to feed, just because of the amount of dirt, you know, for lack of a better term, that's getting thrown into there. So keeping it clean is important. And so what I did is I bought a different set of threads for a bigger can. Well, what I would yeah, it's a bigger suppressor. And I noticed that it is greatly reduced, but the extra weight of the suppressor, being a larger can, creates its own set of issues. So it's I've been experimenting with different ammunition. I bought some target ammunition from Creedmoor, great website for competition shooters and like precision kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I wanted to get to that today, but the weather here's been yeah, it's been great. I tell you, I think I saw a guy building a great big boat with room for two of each animal. Not certain though. All right, so what else is on the agenda today? Right, right. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, yeah. The 22 ammunition. ELEY, I think was the brand or the manufacturer that I intended to test, and I will yeah, I will report those findings as soon as I get them. I also bought a drone, and it was a total knockoff. It was like a little $50 job, and it finally came in the mail after I'd screwed up my address. And yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out. And you know, I totally bought it for legit purposes, right? It's not a toy. It's so I can make sure that there's no, you know, no dogs, no trespassers, or you know, people wandering in the impact area before we go hot on the range, right? Um, so everything's got to have a purpose. All right, so yeah, I'm not going to attempt to teach a CWP class here on 2AT. Not nearly enough time. Normally, the class runs about 6 to 8 hours. Um, but I did want to hit on a couple of topics that have come up, and South Carolina is interesting because they allow guys like me to teach legal stuff, without any formal degree. I'm not an attorney, obviously, and I don't have any legal training. But as a certified firearms instructor for the state of South Carolina, yeah, we're allowed to talk about the law. Of course, I can't advise on it. But some of the topics that have come up during discussion, it kind of made sense. So if there are any legal beagles out there, and anything I say on here is 180 degrees out, or probably needs to be refined, please, um, yeah, let us know. So the topic was, so let's say in the unfortunate event that you find yourself having to defend your life, um, and it's after the shot, right? So after the bang, the responsible thing obviously is to call EMS or law enforcement, 911. Call 911. But what you want to avoid is saying I shot somebody, right? Because everything you say, once you call 911, the recorders start, and it becomes basically a matter of record, right? I mean, anything you say to 911, you're admitting to law enforcement. So if you say I shot someone, even if it was completely justified, right? It's a total stranger. They kicked in the door, and whatever the scenario, avoid saying I shot somebody, and instead say there's been a shooting, right? And that does a few things. First, one, it obviously you didn't record yourself saying, admitting, giving up your Fifth Amendment rights. Um, you're not admitting to a crime, but you're calling because you're being responsible, right? And you need somebody to show up to either assess the injuries or to remove the remains. And the difference between I shot somebody and there's been a shooting will probably be seen with one. I mean, I imagine with a law enforcement, right? So if you say, I've shot somebody, now law enforcement's coming looking for you. But if the message they receive is there's been a shooting, now they're more open minded, like to investigate, to do what it is that they're there to do, right? And again, if there's any and not just legal types, but if a law enforcement out there, if you have any opinion on that, please post it on our Facebook page, um, or call into the show sometime. Yeah, Daniel's got all the equipment for calling in, but yeah, I'd love to hear what some people have to say about that particular aspect. Now, something else came up. In this, well, it's federal, right? You can't take a firearm in any school, preschool, medical facility, churches without permission, places with proper signage, and the list goes on, right? Any federal buildings, courthouses, jails, anything like that. So baseball season started for coach's pitch, which I was talking about my stepson earlier, and I'm walking around there and I see the bunch of people paying attention to their kids chit chatting or whatnot, and I wonder, I was like, so it's at a park, right? So it's not on a school, so I feel comfortable that I can carry concealed without running afoul of the law. Um, not to imply that I'm not looking for a gun there, but um, if somebody's shooting, I want to be ready. So it's a scenario it's an exercise that I tell all of my customers, clients, students, whatever. You know, make the moral decision, an ethical decision before.
Rod, what's going on?
Sorry about that. Yep, having some technical issue here. So I got it. Yeah, I got her squared away. Yeah. So yeah, the what I was talking about, the National Firearms Act, 1934. So requires registration of fully automatic firearms, right? Machine guns, rifles, and shotguns that have an overall length under 26 inches, and rifles with barrels under 16 inches, or shotguns with barrels under 18 inches, and firearm sound suppressors, termed silencers, right? So the there are a lot of and I mentioned before, I'm not a lawyer, so there are a lot of things that you should make yourself smart on if you're going to delve into the realm of modifying or building your own firearms, right? Um, and one of them is the SIG brace, and I've kind of made myself dumb to it lately, just because I had built a couple of firearms, right, quote unquote, that have the SIG brace. The barrels are under 16 inches, but the overall length is like 26 and a half inches, right? Um, and it can't be adjusted. And then, of course, having the suppressors, right? These are all things that you have to fill out forms with the BATFE, I think is what they're calling themselves. Used to be called the ATF. Um, and the Gun Control Act, right? So anything that's destructive, that's where I guess the E really came into effect. Um, so and interestingly enough, the 1994 the Treasury Department placed revolving cylinder shotguns and one semi-automatic shotgun under the NFA. Um, so the Gun Control Act of 1968 prohibits the importation of fully automatic firearms for private purposes, and a 1986 amendment to prohibit the domestic manufacture of fully automatic for private purposes. However, and as I mentioned, short barrel rifles and shotguns have become increasingly popular for home defense, and here's why I think. And I like to tell the story of a client. She's I would say mid 70s, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, and um, I mean, age has set in, and she has difficulty maintaining a good positive control of the firearm. So she had instructors tell her that no, she doesn't need a firearm. You don't need one, and I thought that was the most irresponsible thing I'd ever heard. Because if anybody needs one, it's somebody who would struggle to ward off an attacker. Um, what I recommended to her was the AR style platform, with the pistol grip, the magazine, um, and something like the MPX, right? I've talked about it on the show. I mean, it doesn't have to be an MPX. They have lots of quality 9 millimeter type sub guns, I guess, uh, that would become very useful for somebody who would struggle to hold, maintain positive control of a firearm that only has the pistol grip, right? Especially for home defense. Now, it may get a little bit dicey if you're trying to use it for carry conceal, unless you get you a big backpack. You carry a large bag, but they can be, you know, they can be a little heavy, right? And then if you add a sound suppressor, your overall length it becomes bulky, and yeah. So, yeah, that's the National Firearms Act of yeah 1934, and I guess I'm trying to understand in what scenario do I think that fully automatic weapons should be prohibited? Because the government has them. I don't know if law enforcement agencies have them, but I know the United States military have them. I don't know if the National Guard does. I imagine they do. So if these government entities are allowed access and have control of them, then yeah, I should be able to do the same. And of course, if you have the proper licenses, and through FFL and very deep pockets, then yeah, they're obtainable. But I think that they should be made more uh, readily available. And I I've seen or I've seen drawings of um, tools or basically implements that you can add to a firearm that would make it fully automatic. And it involved the use of a sawzall blade, something that's a really hardy steel, and heating it up and shaping it in such a way that it you know doesn't interfere, but um, resets the sear with the rearward movement of the bolt each time. Um, but yeah, that's a felony to own one, to possess one, to use one. Um, I've heard of stories of people being charged with I can't remember it's something like builder's intent or just because you had the material, like if you have a short barrel but you don't have the sig brace, then now you have intent to make a short barrel rifle, and you can't do that without a tax stamp or having something that would thread onto the end of a firearm that would allow you to use an oil filter as a suppressor. So I guess it's where do you draw the line? Just because you have like a sawzall blade and the know-how and some kind of torch to heat it up and bend it. Um, should that make us criminals? Just because, I mean, it's not a crime to have information. It is a crime to have the stuff. But why is it a crime to have the stuff? Um, if it's available to the law to our government, it should be available to us. The first three words of the Constitution: "We the people." We are the government. So if the government has it but we don't, then it's an oxymoron. It doesn't work. It doesn't compute. There's no logic in it. And people will say, what about the children and what about the lives? There are always going to be dirtbags. There's always going to be scum, and they don't care what tools are available to them. But the right answer is not taking the tools away that stop the bad guys. Making the sheepdog toothless is not going to stop the wolf. All right. So in other news, Yeah, so I guess there was this a whole bunch of what do they call them, caucuses and primaries going on. Um, it's I I'm starting to get the names confused, but one of the things that I saw in the news was the candidate Michael Bloomberg. Um, he's very much so, from what I understand, and a gun control activist or enthusiast. But he'd also had a pretty controversial policy, the stop and frisk, um, and, and appearing was a a very passionate supporter, and it was a policy that was written in 2002. So here is the cautionary tale, I guess, is somebody who's like, yeah, I don't think you should be allowed to carry firearms or own guns. And by the way, I'm going to write policies and laws that say that for no reason at all, I can invade your privacy. I can, you know, um, just shove you against the wall and search you. And if, under the guise of, oh, well, I'm looking for a firearm, but instead I found a bag of weed. So obviously, they can't turn a blind eye to a crime. And so now, they're justifying they're saying the ends justify the means, right? But the problem is, I guess during the time of the policy that was um, they were following, uh, they, they're saying that 70% of the people who were searched were African American males. Um, and their Bloomberg's response was, well, it's because they commit 75% of the crimes. Um, and goes on to say, so who are we supposed to go look for? And this is crap. I mean, because there's only one race, the human race, and if if you're saying that 75% of your crimes are committed by one group, then that tells me you're probably just looking at the crimes committed by that one group. Um, I mean, my fiance works in a prison, and she was telling me that the turnover rate is pretty high for the female prison, which is very different. She said it was very unusual for an 18-year-old girl to have, or I'm sorry, a woman to have a life sentence. Whereas most of them, by the time they get to the state, they've already, got time served. So the point all of this, and a lot of it has to do with drugs. So the point all of this is really I think that an issue that we have, besides people's rights being infringed on and their personal liberties, is what is it that we're trying to accomplish with our correction system? Are we really trying to correct people, or are we just locking people up because we're mad at them? I mean, how many people are we putting in prison that we're truly scared of? And how many of them are there just because, hey, they got one over on on the government, right? They're maybe they're selling drugs, and I'm not an advocate. I've seen the damage that drugs do. Um, but the point is locking people away, pulling them, fathers away from their children and their families. Putting children in jail. It's that's not going to correct the problem. Um, I think that we get back to the basics. Give people reasons to support their families, right? To and not have to resort to sorry about that, more technical difficulties. Um, so yeah, the yeah, so the point is focus on building the people's rights, and compel them to not have to resort to drugs and crime in order to make ends meet. Now of course, greed is going to play a factor. A lot of things are going to play a factor, but I think focus on the good, and make that your priority. Incentivize the right thing, and I think a lot of the rest will take care of itself. All right. So, in other news, again with the technical difficulties, I don't know what's going on. I've got satellite for my internet because I literally live in the sticks, um, which is great because I don't have to worry about neighbors being nosy. I don't have to worry about, if somebody's in my driveway, they're here to see me or they're really lost. Um, it's kind of a dream come true. I'm going to tell you. But the second and third order effect is that yeah, whenever the weather is bad, my internet goes to shit. So um, yeah, the random pauses and the extended silences are not by design. All right, so um, my latest oops, I guess. I was so I had got this the new die set and for 308, and I bought the book. I've got the powders, the primers, the case lube, the projectiles, everything. Done all my research, and so I'm cruising along, making rounds, and one of my cases gets stuck, and I realized that I had either not enough case lube or I'd wiped it off by mistake, and so yeah, now I'm kind of in a rut with making 308s because I've got this 308 case stuck. Um, I did find on YouTube that you can basically tap it out, put a bolt in the bottom, with some kind of spacer for and a washer for it to push against it, and just tighten the bolt and it'll pull it out. Well, the problem is you need a tap for that, so I don't have the tap. And trust me, I have tried everything to get this out. Pinching it in a vise, trying to work it out. I put some PV blaster on it, which I'm gonna have to clean thoroughly to prevent it from contaminating any future rounds that I make. But yeah, I've tried the vice grips, the bench vice. I thought about cutting it off, but I was like, eh. But now I've got absolutely nothing to grab onto if I did that. So yeah, I'm in a bit of a pickle. So yeah, it's good to know people. But yeah, all those people are in town, so I have to make my way to town, or buy myself a tap. To thread that stuck case and somehow yank that sucker out. But if anybody has any home remedies, like hey, yeah, throw it in the microwave, which I don't think would work. It would probably ruin your microwave. But the home remedies like that are don't require special equipment. Um, Please, I'm all ears. All right. So, I get asked a lot of questions teaching classes, and one of them was, how much do I spend? And that's a tough question to ask because, or to answer anyway, um, because nobody wants to spend more than they have to. Um, but there's and there are a lot of good deals out there when you can find them. But how do you know whenever you're getting a good deal and when you're buying junk, right? I've kind of had the mentality of buy nice or buy twice, and it has served me pretty well. I probably have overpaid for some things, but I've gotten some killer deals on others at the same time. So yeah, it's a tough question. I guess the real the best answer I could give is to find something that works for you, that's comfortable, and if it's out of your price point, then save up for it. If it's worth having, it's worth saving for. All right, so all right, so some of the other questions that I get asked is what about what kind of training should I do? And that's really man, your imagination is what is really the limit. Um, and not to say that we should play video games and then try to train to that, or or try to be like John Wick necessarily. Although Keanu Reeves is in real life a competitive shooter, I've watched him, and I don't know if maybe as an actor he got into it as part of the role, or maybe he got the role because he was into competitive shooting before, and I don't know. I'd be interested to ask him that personally. But there is a uh, it's a PDF online, and it's about 5 years old, and it's called ProGunfighter.com, and on there is some 90 pages of drills that, and I may be exaggerating that number, but it's everything from what the Muse Special Operations Command used for their pistol in for qualification. Like I said, all this stuff's dated, but training is training, right? So even if it's an old way of training, it had relevance then, and it's still relevant now. And a lot of it may be a little complicated, even for me. I was trying to follow what they were asking, and maybe I need a smarter guy like Air Force guy to explain it to me. But yeah, I mean, anyway, that website again, progunfighter.com. It's got it's well, actually, I guess it was uploaded in 2013. It's hard telling. But the guy that uploaded it originally did, says, hey, I didn't invent this. This is, like basically um, a collection of things from all over the web that he's found or people have contributed. So yeah, if you're looking for ways to train or some drills you can do, make sure before you try to do some of these drills at your local range that you clear it with the range personnel there, because nobody likes to get kicked out of a rifle range or a pistol range or an indoor any range. And I've done it before, been kicked out because they have a big rule against reloads. And I had just come from a gun show where they had they sold reloads but in big boxes. So yeah, it said reload on the box, so they asked me to leave, and rightfully so. I kind of spaced it on that one. I knew the rules. I rolled the dice and I lost. So yeah, so my point is yeah, progunfighter.com. Go on there if you like some of those drills and you want to try them out. Yeah, check with your range personnel. If you come to my range here in Sally, South Carolina, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. We'll get out there and throw some lead and get some good exercise in at the same time. with the intended purpose of building confidence and skill. With those two things, and I heard an ad on the radio for one of these big gun places in more towards the city, and they're like, "Hey, never shot a gun before? Come down and get your CWP." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I kind of." I don't know who's teaching the class. I know that I'm going to try to set my students up as best I can, and I'm sure every other instructor does too. Um, but that just it just doesn't sound appealing. Even though it's absolutely all right. In the state of South Carolina, the only thing the CWP allows you to do that you can't already do is carry on your person or under the seat in your car. Um, as long as you're staying within the state, you can carry a loaded gun in the glove box around in the chamber in the state of South Carolina. Doesn't even have to be a locked gun box. As long as there is some kind of fastener between you and the gun, right? So the little latch that holds the glove box shut, or if you have a center console, or it's got to be in a luggage compartment, totally far away. Um, all right, I just got a special request to talk about purses. So I don't know what color works best for my skin tone or anything, but um, so some things I've seen that I thought were really good, and some of the complaints I've heard. Anyway, I guess the Gun Totem Mama was one of the brands that comes to mind, and maybe that was a good marketing strategy or something, and that's why I remember it. But they, from what I recall, they have a metal strap, steel cable, basically that is sewn between two pieces of leather, and that makes the shoulder strap, and which makes it, I guess slash proof, so somebody can't run by, grab the purse and slice it, or cut it off your shoulder and then stealing your firearm. Also, the ones that have the some kind of locking mechanism, like something with a key that you can remove. Because yeah, I remember growing up as a kid, that everybody threw their jackets and purses for family gatherings, on a bed. Okay. So those are some of the pros. Some of the cons, I guess, are appearance. So some of them may not look like something that somebody wants to carry. And I can kind of see the difficulty of designing something. I've heard good reviews about gun guys having bags that were appealing and were designed to carry concealed firearms. Now, and I must, mention that I don't carry any of these bags. So any of my reviews are all secondhand or hearsay. So if anybody has any experience with these, again, I welcome your comments, and yeah, I'd love to have a discussion about it. And that's yeah, they make it challenging enough. Like South Carolina doesn't have an open carry. And then you've got all the federal requirements, or restrictions rather, constraints and restraints, that prevent people yeah, who have the right to carry, right? They haven't lost their rights, um, but by virtue of where they work, they can't carry. or it makes them a criminal. So yeah, we'll talk about that on the next show, and hopefully we'll hear more out of Virginia. Oh, I did. Yeah, this was a great article, and I wish I had it in front of me. I think I had already thrown it out, but yeah, there were a couple of counties in Virginia that were uh, voting to secede to West Virginia. So if anybody is from one of these counties, I mean, I'm sure there's little hope of it actually happening. But wow, that that is a bold statement. I'm surprised it didn't get more attention. And let me see if I can find that article real quick. Right. So I guess and I don't know if they're really if it's seriously, Vexit is what they're calling it. I guess they play on Brexit. So West Virginia Republicans encourage conservative Virginia counties to secede, and a lot of this is after the newly um, Democrat-controlled legislature removed Lee Jackson Day, ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, and considered new gun regulations. Some West Virginia Republicans are encouraging conservative counties in Virginia to secede from the Commonwealth. And that's a pretty dramatic move, as they're cited, and maybe they're making a statement to their house in Richmond, the state house, that they matter too. And it's called Vexit. I think it's a great idea. I mean, why not? I mean, if it were the will of the people, right? If they voted, could you imagine? The state lines that would be redrawn. And I've seen the ideas of people talking about California making it two states, and all sorts of great and novel ideas. I don't know. Listeners, tell me, what are your thoughts on being able to say, hey, well, I was from Virginia, but now I'm from West Virginia, because they redrew the lines. But at the end of the day, it's important that we stick together, right? Even if we disagree, we may not always see eye to eye, which is cool. That's fine, man. I respect that, and I value other people's opinions. I don't want everybody to think like me, because, man, have I come up with some dumb ideas. But I think, yeah, that at the end of the day, we're all one people. We're all one race. Look out for each other, and it's a battle of good versus evil, right? Be your own hero. You don't have to wait on somebody else. Go out, do what you need to do to get your own confidence. To train yourself to defend. And I'm really, this is only directed at people that still have those rights. And unfortunately, there are rules.
You got about a minute, Ron.
They put rules and regulations on us that take away our rights. So that is why I'm hope you're with me in supporting our Second Amendment and to stop the erosion. Guys, that's about all the time I have for this evening. If you're still with me, I appreciate your endurance, and for all of the men and women in uniform, both at home and abroad. Hey, good looking out. Keep your head on the swivel. We're all rooting for you back here, and hopefully Daniel will be back next week, and we can actually have a dialogue instead of a monologue, and it'll be it'll be shit hot. All right, guys. All right, I'm Rod Burks for 2A Training, as you were, 2A Talk. Good night.